When I was a child and I initially became interested in the martial arts, I had an uncle who's passed away now who introduced combat jiu-jitsu to me. My nostrils was open, my eyes were opened. I wanted to learn everything I could possibly learn from him, and he's passed now. God rest his soul. Not too long thereafter, I watched a television program, and then a commercial came on, and I saw the late great martial arts master Bruce Lee, one of his movies being uh, advertised. I saw Fist of Fury, Chinese Connection, and then Enter the Dragon. I had long since been captivated by the first commercial advertisement of Bruce Lee. What my uncle had introduced to me was already thought provoking. Oh, this is jujitsu, and he taught me these techniques over the years. But when I saw Bruce Lee, something awakened in me. He jumped out the screen at me, and I was just simply enamored. I was caught. I was touched, and I've never let go ever since. And coincidentally, many other people, many hundreds of thousands of people, and even millions of people over time fell on the Bruce Lee craze. Not because he was an actor, as some like to contend that he was in present day, but because there was something electrifying about him. He had a charisma, he had a screen presence unlike anyone else. Now, we had Five Fingers of Death and Seven Blows of the Dragon and Lady Kung Fu and if I didn't say Five Deadly Venoms, many movies began to surface from Asia when Bruce Lee became the thing, when he became popular at the outset, and it just cascaded. Everyone wanted to do karate. Everyone wanted to do kung fu. Everyone wanted to do judo, jiu-jitsu, some form of martial arts because of Bruce Lee. And what is really sickening, what is really ashamed, is to see all of these guys who really had their careers catapult because of Bruce Lee, to see them talk about him in a less than respectful way by simply trying to degrade him and say that he was just an actor. I'm talking about the old karate people who were around during the time that Bruce Lee was living. I'm not talking about the new age MMA guys. I'll talk about them later, but right now I'm talking about the old heads. Now, all of these guys nowadays, not all, but many, have tried to reduce Bruce Lee to simply an actor. Master Moore was one. This kid, the actor, they tried to say that he's not that good, or he choreographed everything that he did and he was just convincing on screen. I've said this before, I'm going to say it again, especially for those who have not heard me say this. I can't fathom a man who has martial arts equipment, an Asian man, a Chinese man in this particular instance, who trains every day in the martial arts, who has a library of over 2,000 books on virtually every fighting system and or art that exists, who trains with several different systems, from friends and associates and even new individuals that he came in contact with and befriended. He began to pull from everyone because he felt like everyone had something that was valid, that was useful. And he incorporated that into his own personal being. And he created a system that he called Jeet Kune Do. Okay, and then he had equipment made specifically for him to develop speed, to develop his timing, his strength since he was a smaller person, his musculature, and his diet followed suit. Does an actor do all of that? Does an actor go through all of that work to just convince someone that they look like a martial artist? I say no. And anyone with any kind of good sense would know the same. And then on top of that, he taught martial arts. He had more than one school. And he had students follow him. And he still has schools, 50 years after his death, still in existence across the world. Jeet Kune Do, Jun Fan, and so forth. All that came from an actor? How much education do you have to know that he was not simply an actor? Bruce Lee started out as an actor in China. He had approximately 20 films to his credit before he even came to America. Of course he was an actor. First, that became the most legendary, the most profound, the most popular martial arts icon of the 20th and the 21st century. That simple actor did that. Unheard of. Could never happen. Now, the reason that those guys, those karate heads, I'll call them, that existed around that time when Bruce Lee was still living, doing demonstrations and making major motion pictures until his untimely death, the reason that they throw shade at him now is because they would have not had the confidence to do it then. With all due respect, these masters, grandmasters, shifus, senseis, sabams, sabam-nims, kwangji-nims, whatever, doctors, gurus, you're worthy of who you are and what your accomplishments are and were in the martial arts. But stop hating on someone else because it wasn't you. That's the problem. These guys would have never stepped to Bruce Lee. That's why they're talking about him in such a condescending way now. Because if he was living, they would never spar with Bruce Lee. They wouldn't. And if they did spar with him, and there were some that did, everyone knew the truth. They couldn't hang with him. That's what it was. That's the real truth. So just because it was him that reached the stardom that he did in such a short period of time in his life, 32 years old he died, and they didn't make it. Some of them, jealousy is as cruel as the grave, the Bible says. Jealousy. If you believe in yourself and who you are, you don't have to prove anything to anyone else. They'll see it in your character. And the same is true conversely. Bruce Lee cannot help and couldn't help when he was living, that is. He couldn't help that he was given the title of King of Kung Fu the hero of China, the greatest martial artist of our time, and he was humble. You never saw him challenging people, walking around talking about who he could beat, because he was the genuine article during that time. If people wanted to challenge him, and there have been recorded incidents where people on the set of the movies that he was doing didn't think he was as good as what we saw and witnessed. He put them in their place, didn't even fire them. And they had a respect for him. They knew without saying. Now, the proof was in the pudding. So people can say, well, everything that he did was acting, everything that he did was just only choreography. You're missing the whole point. Go back and watch his interviews, and what did he say about martial arts? He said, honestly, martial arts to me is expressing oneself, and he did just that. He expressed his art on screen. Not many people can lay claim to that same thing. You cannot brag about that, because he was the first that did that. Expressed himself and what he had created out of himself, what he brought out of himself. He displayed it to the world on screen. That was it. And that was all. These guys need to get over themselves, get over their egos, quash it, squash it, and believe in who you are. And stop being jealous of someone for being who they were. That was it.